Hi, everyone. I'm Judy, the YouTube lawyer. Today, our special live stream guest is an attorney from New York City. He's a graduate of Rutgers Law School. His name is Shantonu Basu, and he's also a subscriber to this channel and was nice enough to reach out and say that he was willing to be on a live stream show. So feel free to drop your questions in the chat box, and we will bring Attorney Basu to the stream. Hi, Shantanu.
Hi, Judy. How are you?
Oh, I'm fine. Thank you so much for being willing to be on the show. I know it's been probably a long week for you and you worked the whole day, right? So,
Yeah.
yeah. So, can you tell us a little bit about your background and how you wound up going to law school?
Yeah. Well, I grew up in New York City and I went to local school here, went to college locally at City College of New York. Um, and I studied philosophy, so I didn't really have much of a sense of what I was going to do when I graduated college. And just seemed like should go to law school, while I figured out what I wanted to do. It seemed pretty easy. Just take the LSAT and go. So that's what I did, and I wound up getting into a couple schools. And I just wound up at Rutgers just because it seemed sort of far away enough from New York City, but close enough that I could get back when I needed to. So yeah, that's why I wound up there, going to law school there, and yeah, it's been great. So it's been really good.
Okay, cool. So, where did you grow up in New York or New
Yeah,
Jersey?
I grew up in Manhattan, which is where I live now. So yeah, grew up right pretty much on Broadway in the Upper West Side.
Wow, that's so interesting. Yeah. So, what did your parents do for a living?
Well, my parents divorced when I was a kid, so I didn't really grow up with my dad. My dad was a sort of an academic, kind of a failed academic. He wound up trying to get a PhD in physics, and he wasn't that successful, and he wound up becoming a computer scientist. And my mom was like sort of unemployed growing up. We didn't have much money, and so she wound up kind of being like a teaching assistant for special ed. So that was what she did. She had been a nurses, whatever you call it, nursing assistant before I was born, and then she was unemployed for a long time. We were actually on public assistance for probably the first 12 years or 13 years of my life. And then when I went to high school, she went back to work and did some, like teaching. She was like a teacher's assistant.
Oh, that sounds like a really tough life then, because, Manhattan is so expensive
Well, it
also.
wasn't back then. Unfortunately, we were living in a rent stabilized apartment, so the rent was very affordable. My mom still lives there, so I grew up in a really good neighborhood. I grew up in wonderful, wonderful neighborhood with lots of bookstores and just cool cafes and lots of things to do. Right near Columbia University, so it was like an almost an ideal childhood. Because I was meeting a lot of people. Pretty close to some world class museums like the Met and Natural History and New York Historical Society and everything. So it was really an amazing childhood, to be honest. Um, so and it wouldn't have been
Yeah.
possible. That would not have been possible without our rent regulation. So
Oh,
instead,
yeah. So that's exactly why it's great that you are a housing lawyer because you
yeah,
personally felt the effects of that. Yeah.
yeah,
And
yeah.
and so are your parents from India?
Well, yeah, sort of. My dad is from
Mhm.
India, and my mom is Indian, but she was born in Jamaica,
Oh,
so she was Indo-Caribbean.
I see. And did they meet in New York City?
Yeah, yeah, they met in New York City. No, that's the one place you would find that combo. I mean, maybe you would find it elsewhere, but New York is super diverse and people from all over the world. They're
Mhm,
both my parents were born, out of the country. Both my parents are immigrants.
mhm.
So yeah, Upper West Side, Morningside Heights is full of people like that, and
Mhm.
yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I don't know if you saw the live stream from a few months ago, but my friend Alicia Prendergast Jones, who is also public interest attorney. Yeah, she
Mhm.
has a parent who is also from Jamaica, and it's of like maybe 5 or 6 different, um, I don't know, nationalities
Right.
originally. Like Jamaican, West Indian,
Mhm.
Irish, Italian, Black,
Yeah.
African American.
Right.
I was like,
Yeah.
wow,
That's awesome.
that's so cool. And she's from New York, or her parents are from New York City also. So
I'll have to check it out. I'll definitely check it out.
yeah, she's a legal aid attorney here in Raleigh. So,
Oh, okay.
okay, well, cool. So it sounds like, I mean, but how were things for you in school though? It sounds like you must have been a pretty good student then.
Not really. No, I wasn't. I wasn't a very good
Really?
student. No, I was average. I was good. I was like a B student.
Mhm,
Um, I didn't really take school very seriously. So I
mhm,
mean, I did well, but I didn't do extraordinarily well. I was
mhm,
not like I didn't graduate with honors or anything. Pretty average, a little bit above average student.
mhm,
Um, yeah, but I did okay on the LSAT. I didn't like really study for that either, but
mhm.
it's mostly reading, so I could do that.
I see. Well, did you go to public schools in
Yeah,
Manhattan?
my whole life I went to public schools in Manhattan. Yeah, well, I
Mm.
mean, yeah, pretty much my whole life. I went to like a school in the Bronx briefly, but I got kicked out.
Oh, interesting. So
Yeah.
when you mentioned you went to CUNY
Well, City College of New York,
or
which is
City?
part of the CUNY system. Yeah.
Mhm. Yeah, and did you get scholarships to go to college or law school?
No. Yeah, I mean,
Oh,
it's pretty
okay.
affordable. I mean, these are public schools. City College was like maybe like $2,000 a semester when I went there.
Mhm.
Maybe a little more. It's probably more now. So it used to be free, but
Oh,
it's not now. But it used to be free. It was free. All like City College has educated so many, hundreds of thousands of people
mhm.
in New York, and many of them have gone on to do amazing things. But
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. So, but City College used to be free. It was like $3,000 a semester, maybe a little less. So I
Mhm.
didn't really have. I get a little bit of scholarship money, but not much.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but that sounds so affordable. I mean, even though
Yeah.
it might have been what, like more than 10 years ago, but boy,
No,
compared
I
to
graduated
college.
in '97, so
Yeah, yeah. But I mean,
a long time ago.
now you hear of people paying private colleges more than 60,000 a year just for
Yeah.
undergrad, and then law school 60 something plus
Right.
thousand. Yeah.
Right.
And then how was it at Rutgers then? Like, do you recall how much it costs to go to Rutgers for
Not
law school?
Yeah, not really. I mean, I still have student loans actually,
Oh, okay.
because I did stupid things. But um, yeah, it wasn't. I was out of state for the first year, and then I was in state for the next two
Mhm,
years. So it wasn't. It was a reasonably priced public law school. Um, I thought it was great. That's when I really started to focus. I really loved my first year of law school. I did really well my first year of law school. I made
mhm,
law review and did that sort of stuff. So I was very into that.
mhm,
So I took that very seriously. I didn't I didn't I didn't go to class, but I studied a lot. I didn't really feel that class was very important for me. I don't think I was learning very much, but I just would study. There was a period like during finals where I probably studied every waking hour for 3 weeks.
mm. Wow,
I
that's
locked myself in a room and just didn't leave until I knew what I was doing.
oh my gosh. Okay. Well, I mean, was law school stressful for you?
It wasn't. It wasn't. I mean, for me, it was more like I didn't think that the teaching was that great. I think that the teachers tried very hard, but I
Mhm,
felt like that I kind of knew the game. Like you kind of go through this case method, and then at the end, the test is nothing like that, right? The test is this issue spotter, and I was like, well, why am I learning to read these cases if you're not going to ask me to read the cases at the test? You're going to ask me to do these issue spotters. So I just got every old test I could get, and I did like these examples and explanation books, and I did every single question, like sort of bar type questions and essays, and practice that for hours and hours and hours. And that's why I did well. Like, I mean, I got like really, really good grades. And there was one class, civil procedure, I probably showed up 3 times for the class. And I
Mhm.
still got like the highest grade in the class because I had
Oh my God.
studied. Yeah, I'd studied, I mean, that wasn't because I wasn't working. I was working very, very hard. I just wasn't in class. I wasn't sort of
Mhm.
doing outlines and stuff like that. I was like, that's not going to help me. Um,
Mhm.
you know, so,
Yeah,
but
so you're
that's,
very, very good at independent learning.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Mhm.
exactly. Yeah, that's
Yeah.
more of how I learn. And what's good about law school is that you can kind of do that. I mean, I wouldn't recommend not going to class, but
Yeah.
especially if your teacher is going to take attendance. Um, but a lot of times they wouldn't take attendance. I don't know how it was for you in law school, but a lot of times they didn't really take
Yeah.
attendance.
No one took attendance at
Yeah, no one
Georgetown.
takes
There are
attendance.
too many students there.
Right.
Oh, well, here's a question. Hi, baby doodles. Okay, I've never heard someone say they liked the first year of law school. That's good, but very rare.
Yeah.
I thought it was okay. It wasn't like I was really happy, but
Yeah.
it wasn't god awful either.
Yeah, no, I loved it. I mean, I started studying before I went to law school. I was actually working as a doorman, during the
Oh,
summer, like between college and law school. A friend of mine got me a job as a doorman, like as a temporary doorman. While doormen were going on vacation, I would kind of be like a doorman at this very nice building near Lincoln Center. And one of the residents of the building was a law student at Fordham. Fordham's law school is in Lincoln Center, basically. Their main campus is in the Bronx, but the law school is in Lincoln Center. And she must have been from a very wealthy family because they got her a co-op in Lincoln Center. And I forget I forget how we sort of got to talking, but she was like, I have all these old like law books and these tapes. Back then there were these tapes,
mhm,
and she was like, just take them. So she gave them to me, and so I started
mhm,
listening to like contracts, like these
mhm,
audio, like Sum and Substance, that kind of thing. I started listening to that before I went to law school. So I
mhm.
was really like fascinated. I'd already gotten in and everything, but I started studying long before. So I was like really ready when contracts happened, or got those contracts towards civil procedure and legal research the first semester.
Mhm.
I knew a lot already. I knew the
Yeah.
mailbox rule. I knew everything. Like because
Mhm,
I'd heard the entire course. You know, so I loved law school. I mean, it's like learning everything, new and stuff like that. And it's very like eye opening. And, I didn't really have to go to class, kind of showed up to class when I wanted to. Um, but it was like a new world for me. So I just really loved the first year. I mean, it was hard, civil procedure especially was really hard. Um, but I started thinking like, okay, it's not rocket science. I'm just going to sit here and study it. So
mhm.
it was
Okay,
really
great.
rewarding.
Awesome. Yeah, good to hear. Hi, Serena. She says, thanks for being here. I'm a CUNY alum and graduated debt free. Great. I wonder what made you go to law school and what made you choose your career path.
Just a series of accidents, a series of unfortunate events.
Huh? What do you
uh,
mean?
yeah, I mean,
Give
like
us some details.
I didn't have a plan. I mean, I had no plan in terms of why I should go to law school. I just knew I couldn't get a job with a philosophy degree. I mean, that's probably not true. I probably could have gotten a job, but in my mind, I was like, well, what am I going to do with my life? I don't really know. And so law school seemed like a good place to camp out for 3 years and try and figure it out. So that's what I
Yeah.
did. And I had zero plan. I did not know what I wanted to do when I graduated. Had absolutely no plan at all. Um, like I wound up doing very well my first year. I didn't do as well the next couple of years, but I did very well the first year, and that put me kind of on a track where, I mean, I went to I didn't go to I didn't go to top 25 law school, but if you do very well even at Rutgers or at a lesser, a not as prestigious law school, you still kind of like do have access to some of like the big law jobs, not as many. So I sort of thought like, hey, maybe I'll just do that. And so my first summer, I wound up working at the at the what do you call it, the Eastern District of Pennsylvania, whatever that's called, the U.S. Attorney Eastern District of Pennsylvania. When I'm interning there, and then I wound up like interning at like a big New Jersey law firm, not like huge, but like 100 attorneys, which is big for New Jersey. I didn't get an offer. I don't think I was very good. But I'd done so well in law school, at least the first year, I got a pretty good clerkship. A lot of people from Rutgers wind up going to work as law clerks with the judiciary, and wound up with a really great judge, wonderful, wonderful judge. He just taught me so much. And then I left my clerkship and I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. I still wasn't even sure if I wanted to be an attorney. So a friend of mine got me a job and I didn't like it. A friend of mine got me a job doing developing affordable housing, but I like that part. I like the concept of doing good work for people and doing kind of like, sort of at that point, I was like, being public interest lawyer would be good. So I wound up doing that, but I didn't like the actual work. It was extremely difficult. Very high, there's regulatory law, like with development of housing, lots of environmental regulations, lots of zoning regulations, and the cases were gigantic. The cases were, these sprawling cases, decades long, maybe, more than that, 20 years, to get certain approvals, for building affordable housing and for building, for-profit housing as well, with some affordable units. And a lot of the work it's litigation, but a lot of the work really isn't in the hands of the attorney. It's in the hands of these engineers and architects and people like that. And I didn't like that. So I wrote down a list of all the things, but I didn't hate it. So I wrote down a list of all the things I wanted out of a job, and I wrote them down. And there's like maybe a list of 10 things I really wanted out of my job. And I figured, where can I get these 10 or 15 things, whatever it was? And I said, I could do this in New York City, which is where I'm from, and I think I could do this I get these things as a public interest lawyer. And they were things like smaller cases, a lot of supervision, a lot of resources, my own cases where I'm the boss, et cetera, like whatever the list was. And then one of the last things was, I never want to do billable hours again.
Yeah.
Never bill an hour. I got everything, except I still have to bill hours. So it worked out wonderfully. And I just got lucky, because it turned out to be the perfect place. And I got like I said, I got everything I could ever want. I have my own cases. I, get to help people. I'm amazing. When I start out, I'm now a supervisor, but when I started out, I had really great supervisors and mentors and people that would take me to court and, show me everything, review all my work. Really great, like continuing legal education, lots of training, a great camaraderie. I got everything, but I still have to bill. In fact, I'm behind on my bills right now.
Yeah, I didn't know people had to do billable hours if you're working for a nonprofit organization.
The billable, what's funny is the billable hours they're not as bad now, but they used to be worse, because when I was at the firm, I would do billable hours. I would bill to a client and you just bill. But in public interest, at least at my office, the work that I was doing initially was HIV law. Like I was representing. I did housing. It was really housing, but it was people with HIV. And because of the politics about HIV and just the politics in general, you couldn't do certain work under certain contracts. So you couldn't bill Ryan White for housing. It was a mess. So not only did I still have to bill, but billing actually became harder because you had to attribute certain work to certain contracts. And even today, like it's, there's like 50 different contracts that we have, and they only expire every year, and you have to get a new one, and sometimes you bill into the old contract. So billing, not every public interest office works that way, but I work at NYC, and they're federally funded, so their contracts are very complicated. And we get audited all the time, and very often they ding us. They're like, you billed to the wrong contract. So
I had no idea. That's very interesting
Oh
to
yeah.
hear that. So you're at Legal Services?
Uh-huh.
Okay, I see. And how long have you worked there?
Off and on, I started my career there in 2004.
Mhm,
And and then I wound up I had some like personal relationships. I wound up moving to California. Then I wound up living in Mexico for a bit, and then I came
mm,
back to New York. So I stopped working in 2010, sort of just quit and moved to California. And then I came back to New York in 2011, and in 2011, no one was hiring.
mhm.
So I wound up getting a job, but I wound up sort of bouncing around from different legal service to, from different offices, as I kind of got situated. And then I wound up back at legal services. So,
Mhm.
yeah. So
Oh,
I guess
good.
off and on since 2004.
Yeah, so you kept up your connections. Well, when you were in Mexico or California, were you working as an attorney?
No, I didn't have a job.
Oh,
No, I was
okay.
unemployed. I was like gainfully unemployed.
Mhm,
The wonderful thing, so it's kind of a personal thing, which I don't mind sharing. Like, I had a girlfriend at the time, and she was got into PhD program at Berkeley. So I was like, I'm going to go to Berkeley and
mhm,
become a California attorney. But I love public interest so much. I was like, I want to continue doing it. And I figured that I needed to learn Spanish if I was going to be a public interest lawyer in California. So I figured the best place to go would be to go to Mexico. So I kind of touched down at Berkeley,
mhm.
and then said, hey, I'm gonna go to Mexico for a couple of months and just learn Spanish, and
Oh,
that's what I did. And yeah, no, that's been very helpful in my career, is learning to speak Spanish.
mhm,
I'm still not like 100% fluent, but I do speak pretty good Spanish, and I can communicate with my clients,
mhm.
explain to them what their options are and come up with legal strategies. So my Spanish is good enough to do that. It's not good enough to like
Excellent.
do anything, but it's good enough to do law work. So
Yeah, yeah, that's just amazing. I went to Berkeley for undergrad, so and
mhm.
I really wish that I had that opportunity because I did try to go to Costa Rica to learn Spanish, but I
Yeah,
couldn't stay for long because I had to come back to my law practice.
right.
So it is really hard to learn a language once you start working and you're an adult and
Yeah,
people really got to learn a new language, I think, when you're in college or
yeah.
younger, when you have the
Well,
time.
I don't know, 37 or something like
Oh,
that. I mean,
oh wow.
and I just didn't have a job, and I just hung out in Mexico City, and just talked to as many people as I could, and went to as many parties as I could, and
Cool.
um, went to museums, and I had roommates, and they didn't speak English, so it was easy enough. I mean, still hard, but it was easier than it might have otherwise been.
Mhm. Yeah, that's great. I'm sure your clients are always,
Yeah.
happy to find someone that can sort of speak Spanish with them and
Mhm.
understand them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely. Yeah.
cool. Okay, well, Baby Doodle says, "Since I was low income, I had to get a legal aid lawyer to fight an eviction. He was awesome. I would definitely recommend legal aid to people who can't really afford a lawyer. They do great work." Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that's
Well,
good
thank
to
you.
hear.
That's great. Yeah. I don't know if that was in New York City or some other
Yeah, where
um,
was that?
jurisdiction,
Um,
but
yeah, they do have real attorneys who work yeah, they definitely are staffed with real attorneys, so it's not just a bunch of law students just
oh no, I mean, I think we're the best lawyers in the city. I mean, I really do. I would put us against anybody. We're far better than the landlord's bar, um, by a wide margin. So you're actually getting a better lawyer for free than you would if you paid. Um,
Mhm,
there's no question about it. And we have people who are very type A in our office. We have people, they're all Ivy League grads that they work for me. So a lot of my
yeah,
folks, graduate from Columbia, NYU, Yale, Harvard. Um, they are just crazy driven, and they're ideological. So Stanford, there's some people that will do this and do it for less money than obviously they could make doing other things, and they're just really good lawyers. We just
mhm,
we just create really good attorneys, and you know so I think that we're lucky that New York City attracts a lot of that type of person
Mhm.
that, will work constantly. So it's not like, and, I mean, I think that's true of criminal defense as well, but
Mhm.
I think that the problem with criminal defense is that they are so overwhelmed with a number of cases. Now, because we passed a law in New York called Right to Counsel, where
Mhm.
everyone pretty much can get a free lawyer, we're now becoming a little bit like the criminal defense folks, where our docket is huge. I mean, I was reading this thing about New Orleans public defenders having like 200 felonies a day or something
Wow.
insane. There's
Yeah.
no way you could provide good services with that number of cases.
Mhm.
We're not there. We're not at that level, but we are getting to a point where we just sometimes like we don't do as good a job as what we used to because we just have so many more cases. But when I
Mhm.
when I started, we do really great work and we win a lot of cases. I mean, we can.
Awesome. Well, what kind of cases does your office handle? I mean, are you mostly doing evictions or other
Yeah,
kinds of tenant
eviction
right cases?
defense. There are other 10. I don't do those. Like there are other units within my office that do organizing that bring
Mhm.
affirmative cases that will sue landlords, for violations, for repairs. There's laws in New York where you can actually take over a building, where the tenants can take over a building, and wind up sort of owning it sometimes, or at least getting an administrator placed there where you can the administrator will then borrow money from the city, make the repairs, and then also collect rent. So that's called a 7A. And so a lot of people in my office do that. I don't do that. What I do is pure defense. I don't do any affirmative cases. I don't do impact litigation.
Mhm.
What I do is people come in and they're going to be evicted, and I try and stop it. So it's really like trench work. It's, you are there. A lot of it is non-payment nowadays. So I would say, 70% of it is probably people that just can't afford the rent. And we have to kind of fix it. And there are different techniques that we use to fix it.
Mhm.
Um, but the more interesting cases tend to be the holdovers, right? They tend to be nuisance cases because in New York City, you have a right to a lease, like you have a right to renewal. So you essentially own the place, right? I mean, the landlord cannot evict you
Uh-huh.
without cause. You are there forever. Like my mom's been in her apartment since, whatever, 1982.
Oh.
Um, and she pays, $800 a month.
Oh.
Um, so, landlord would love nothing more than to evict people like that
Mhm.
because they could raise the rents. Laws changed
Mhm.
recently, so it makes it harder. But yeah, so that's what we do. So a lot of times the landlords come up with bogus reasons to try to evict the tenant. Say that they're creating a nuisance or say that they don't really live there. And or they broke their lease, they have a washing machine, they're not supposed to have a washing machine, they have a dog, they're not supposed to have a dog.
Mhm.
Uh, those are the kinds of cases I do.
Oh, okay, interesting. Well, have you ever gotten into cases where people are mad at you or they just think that you're not doing a good job for them even though they're not paying you?
Sure. Yeah, every now and then, you don't, and I tell my staff like, look, it's wonderful when people thank you. And 80, I would say more than that. I would say 95%, maybe 98% of people who get help from us love us. They write us letters. They buy us flowers. They will bake us cakes.
Oh.
Little minor things. Once one client gave me like a little pen that had my name on it. We're not allowed to accept gifts, but we can accept like little, trinkets and things like that. Um, every now and then you get clients that are, that hate, that think you aren't doing a good job and, want to fire you and get a different free lawyer. And so, yeah, that happens, but it's rare. But it does happen and it can be demoralizing. So I tell my people, look, you're here to defend your client, but you're also here to save the apartment. Your client might not be tenant of the year, but you're here to save the apartment for this family. They have kids, those kids didn't do anything. So let's save the unit, So, one of the, just happened last week, no, this week, I have a case where the rent is $190,
Oh.
and the apartment is in a very desirable part of New York City, very desirable.
Mhm.
And we're gonna lose it. We're gonna this one we're gonna lose. But because the person did not do what they should have done in order to get inheritance. You can inherit the apartment, you can inherit a lease, you can inherit the low rent, but you have to do certain things to inherit the lease. They didn't do those things. Likely, they didn't do those things. I mean, we'll see. Maybe they did. We're still investigating, but it's very painful to lose an apartment like that because our job is to preserve affordable housing, and we just lost one of the most affordable one of the most affordable apartments in the city of New York. So that's actually harder than when your client tells you, that you're a bad lawyer. You're not. But when you do lose a case where there's a very low rent, that actually hurts more than anything the client can tell you.
Yeah, that's right, because then the landlord will probably raise the rent to what, like 7,000 a month or
Right,
something?
right. I mean, the laws have changed slightly, so that they can't do that as easily, but they still are doing it. Yeah.
I see. And
Yeah.
Serena has another question. What differences and abilities do you observe, I guess,
Right.
regarding lawyers from elite and regional law schools in public interest? Separately, I agree that younger people are advantageous in language acquisition.
Yeah. Well, they are. Yeah, that's true.
In general, yeah.
In general, yeah. But you can still learn it. I mean, people learn it. We have attorneys that have learned, Mandarin, for example, or actually Cantonese, because obviously we have Chinatown and we have a large, Cantonese, and now Mandarin. The demographics have changed, and people have learned it. That's obviously incredibly hard,
Yeah.
but people learn Spanish, and that's a lot easier. In terms of abilities from elite, it's really hard to say. I mean, I certainly think that there's probably it's hard to it's really I can't say. I mean, we have a variety of people. We have people that graduate from really top, ultra elite law schools, and we have people that went to Rutgers or CUNY or a variety, Syracuse, a variety of different schools, Brooklyn Law School. You can't. They're all competent. They're all really good. I don't personally believe that there's much difference in terms of what you wind up with. I think it really matters how motivated the person is. I think that it doesn't matter. In some ways, people that graduate from the lesser known law schools sometimes have an advantage in terms of their ability. It really just depends. I mean, the best lawyers I know, I mean, I know some really great ones, but some of the best trial lawyers, are these guys that, went to like some school, PACE or something like that, but they've been in the trenches for so long and they're never nervous. One of the most important things about being a trial lawyer and a litigator is that you can't get nervous. You have to relax. And that's what I do. I do a lot of trial work and a lot of motion practice and arguing motions, and I'm in court a lot. And I don't think I'm like the smartest person, but I rarely get flustered. I rarely get nervous. I mean, if you saw the Amber Heard Johnny Depp trial, you could see that guy just get nervous, and he went to University of Michigan, top 10 law school, but he just got nervous. You could get a guy from, whatever, some no-name law school in the middle of the country, but she's just been in the trenches for so long that she just is just going to be relaxed, and listening. That's the important thing when you're in trial, or anything that you're doing is listening, but you can't listen if you're nervous. So I don't really think that I have not noticed a difference. Sure, people that went to Columbia or Yale, they may be a little bit more motivated, maybe a little more motivated, maybe pick it up a little faster. But I personally don't think there's that much difference.
Yeah, and a lot of the stuff that you end up doing on the job is nothing you learn in law school anyway. So
Right.
everybody's starting from zero
Oh yeah.
regarding housing law and how to deal
Yeah.
with clients. Yeah.
Yeah, people think it's like, oh, that's like real estate, right? And I'm like, I don't know anything about real estate, and I don't know anything about real property. I wouldn't know how to do a closing. I don't know anything about the rule against perpetuities. I don't know any of that stuff. I just know what I'm doing.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Tuan has a question. Is there a way to restore or replace those affordable housing areas?
There's lots of ways, but it never happens. So, we could talk policy, and I'm not qualified to talk about housing policy. Like, I don't do policy, I do defense, right? So someone else does policy, But yeah, I mean, just being in the business, I do know a little bit about policy, and I do know that the policies are garbage. They are not doing anything. The city of New York is doing zero to create more affordable housing. I mean, when I say zero, I mean zero. So one way there's so many ways they could create affordable housing. One is NYCHA. I don't know if this is a New York City thing, but public housing, the projects, right? That is, they are not building any new projects. So that would be a way to create affordable housing, is to create more projects and create better projects. Another way is through the 80/20 program, which is a terrible program. Again, I'm not a policy person, so I don't know, but I do know that the program is terrible.
What is
and I'll
that?
give you I'm going to explain. So what happens is if you look at the skyline of Manhattan, you see these giant tall buildings that are essentially empty, and they're just luxury apartments. In order to build that tall, they need variances, they need deals from the city, and the city will give them that in exchange for setting aside 20% of the units, and those are going to be the affordable units. The affordable units. So that's the 80/20 program. So that's another way to create affordable housing. But what's affordable, right? So they have these schemes, like whether it's, certain percentage of area median income, the rent can't be high, can't be above this amount. But if you look at those tall those tall buildings, a lot of the affordable units are studios. So yes, maybe they're affordable, but a family can't live there. So, it's sort of a fraud, honestly. So, again, I'm not a policy person. I couldn't really critique it, but I have a few clients in some of those apartments. Actually, a number of clients in those apartments. Most of them are small, and they will not house a family. So is there a way to restore or replace affordable housing? Yes, but there's not enough political will to do it. We have Not in My Backyard, NIMBY, people don't want to develop affordable housing. There's a lot of great public interest work around it, but very often we're so inundated with the defensive cases where people, like a mother of 4 is about to be evicted tomorrow. We don't have time to really look at the policy and really create the political side of it, is, create that change. But yes, a great question. There are ways, it just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So we're constantly losing affordable housing.
That's
Constantly.
right. Yeah, sometimes I hear people say that Manhattan has totally become sanitized, or just basically where trust fund kids can live, and
Right.
really like
Right.
top
It's
1%.
oligarchs. Honestly, a lot of these buildings are empty.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. These
Yeah.
brand new buildings are just empty.
Yeah. Are they like owned by people in foreign countries?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah.
And by Russian billionaires and Saudi billionaires and people like that.
Oh, okay. Interesting. Okay. Serena asks, I recall you mentioned during a live stream as a participant that Mandarin and Cantonese are in demand. I'm a speaker of both. What areas of law can I put these language skills into usage?
Well, we have a thriving Chinatown practice in housing. So housing in New York City is always the big one. Of course, immigration is going to be an area where you can do a lot of good. Family law is another one. I mean, any area of public interest is going to need those skills. You really kind of want to look at what area. When I mean by area, I mean geographic area. So Queens has, a fairly substantial Chinese population. Obviously, Chinatown has a very large Chinese population of Chinese speaking, Mandarin, Cantonese, Fujianese. So those are the main areas. I'm sure Brooklyn does too. I don't know where it is, but To you, it's more geographic. Your skills will be put to use right away. I mean, we once had we had a secretary, and she spoke all three. She spoke Fujianese, Cantonese, and Mandarin, and then she decided to go to nursing school, and we all were like, how are we going to replace her? I mean, we couldn't, but she was able to do all of that. So yeah, language skills are very important. Haitian Creole. We actually are mandated by the federal government to have a certain number of speakers of certain languages, and it's very difficult to fill those positions. One of them is, I think, Yoruba, and we had like a Yoruba speaker, and then we lost her, and so it's a whole mess in terms of languages. We wind up spending a lot of money on translation services, and they're not very good. So yeah, I mean, I mean, if you speak both Mandarin and Cantonese, you will, and you have a law degree and you're law licensed, I mean, you're gonna find a job pretty quickly.
Okay, so
in
you would be,
I'm saying in public interest. So immigration. So housing is always housing is in New York City. Housing is everything, right? Housing is, all these public interest offices. They're 75% housing, and then there's a mix of other stuff. Family. Unfortunately, there's lots of DV.
domestic violence.
Right. There's lots of domestic violence in immigrant communities, and a lot of fear of getting police involved, and a lot of problems with cultural competence and all that. So yeah, I mean, if you have language skills of any kind, you're gonna Russian even. I mean, you're going to find a place in New York City that needs it. But the Cantonese, Mandarin, very much in demand because it is such a difficult language to learn. Like, some of my staff could learn Spanish, but they're not going to learn Cantonese. It's just too different. So that for that reason, that is always needed.
Mm-hmm. I see. Well, although I think a lot of people thinking about law school are also thinking about whether they're going to be able to make enough to pay off their law school debts, given how the tuition has rapidly increased. So can you give us a general idea of how much public interest lawyers can make from the start, or,
yeah, it's actually public. Expect? Yeah, I knew this question was coming, and I wish I had Googled it, but it's actually public information. So there's a union. I work in a union shop, and a lot of these shops, the legal services offices, are unionized. So you could just Google it, and there's a step. I mean, I could try it now. I don't want to mess up the program, but I forget what the steps are, and I actually forget how much I make. But I make over 100,000 a year. So, and my wife is also a public interest lawyer, and she makes the same. So
yeah, but you're a supervisor.
Yeah, I've been doing it a long time. You're not going to start out with that. But you're not going to start out with 35 either. I think it starts at 75. I don't know. I mean, just Google legal services NYC or legal aid NYC union contract, and it should you should just be able to see what the steps are, and you get promoted in terms of your money. It's lockstep. Like, it's just, you graduate in this year of law school, you're going to get an increase based on that every year. And then you get a COLA, cost of living increase as well. So, it's not, you're not going to get rich. You will not get rich. That's for sure. But you should, and there's also public interest law for loan forgiveness, LRAP, and different programs. I think that it's definitely something that you can live fairly comfortably with just your salary. I come from a poor background, so I didn't get any money from my parents. I still rent an apartment, but it's rent stabilized.
Yeah.
So, I can afford to go out to dinner and go to Paris and on vacation, and, I don't, so yeah, you won't starve. But yes, it is the money is less than you would get in the private sector.
Yeah. And we're talking about New York City too,
right.
Where it's
so $100,000 is not go very, even with the two of us, it's, well over 200. And we still don't have a lot of money. I'm still pretty, we're not struggling, but you're not making, I don't have a car, I don't, have like that,
Mhm.
but we're doing, but still you can save money and, I have a nice apartment and
Mhm.
healthcare. I mean, we have great healthcare. We have great benefits.
Yeah.
Um,
That
so,
definitely counts for something.
oh
Yeah,
yeah.
plus the fact that you grew up there, so you're
Right.
used to the quality of life and,
Right.
how to get around, how to save money around
Yeah.
there and,
Yeah.
how to enjoy yourself without going broke in New
Right.
York. So,
Right. Right.
yeah. So interesting. But do you find that some of the younger attorneys have to live farther away to be able to afford housing?
Yeah, I mean, most everyone has a roommate. I mean, I would say that. Like the newer attorneys, for the most part, all of them, people kind of shack up in New York City pretty quickly. It's like, I kind of like you. All right, let's live together because the rent is so high.
Oh.
So I will say that is true. Most people live with others, so they have a roommate, or they are married, or they have a partner. Some that live with their parents. A couple of my people live with their parents.
Mhm.
Um, so it's not great, but it's not like you'll be able to go out for lunch. Like, you know what I mean?
Mhm.
You're not so poor that you can't afford anything.
Yeah.
Um, but you're definitely not making what you would make at doing something different. But the rewards are you will love what you do.
Mhm.
And you will be around other people that, for the most part, also love what they do. And there's an incredible sense of camaraderie and sense of purpose, that you will find, and you'll have like really great friends. I mean, I met my wife in court, um,
Oh.
you know, and lots of people seem to do that, and so we're all on the same team, and we all kind of go out and go drinking and party together and sing karaoke and go to picnics and do all kinds of cool stuff together. Um, it's like being in a club.
Mhm.
So yeah, we don't get paid a lot, but it is a blast. I mean, it is really fun.
Yeah, that's amazing because you don't hear that many lawyers saying that their job is fun and they voluntarily socialize with other people they
Oh
met in.
yeah, yeah, yeah. No, that's the best part of it. I mean, I think that there's these subcultures, like criminal defense attorneys have a renown for that. Like they're like, I mean, legal services, like, we party pretty hard. But then I went to hang out. We did a training up in the Bronx with the Bronx Defenders,
Mhm.
which is a criminal defense unit in the Bronx. Cannot keep up with them. I mean, those they party, they
Okay.
party.
How can
Yeah,
they
I mean, they
afford
have
it?
like they have night arraignments at 2 in the morning, and
Oh gosh.
there's a whole different subculture, and they are really like crazy.
Mhm.
So our culture is not as fun as as public defenders. Those they're their own breed, but we're next, I think, after them in terms of fun.
Yeah, I see. Okay, well, getting back to work though, are there red flags you see when you talk to clients? And on that note, like, do you ever turn away clients? Do you have the
Yeah,
ability to turn away people if you see
yeah,
a lot of red flags or they're
yeah.
wasting your time?
Oh yeah, I mean, there's a lot of we don't turn away a lot of people. I will
Mhm.
say that. We're obligated to help, right? I mean, we're paid by the city of New York to help. So it has to be pretty bad before we're like, we can't help you. But it does happen. And the job, of course, would be easier without clients. Clients find ways to mess things up. They don't tell you the truth. So that's the number one flag, is like they're just lying to you. Um, that's probably the number one. The other one is their expectations are unrealistic.
Mhm.
Um, so some of my job as a supervisor is to manage clients' expectations and to figure out like how to help my staff, my people do the same, right? So client expectations, managing those, and getting the truth from your client, those are red flags, but we can work with those. Um, you know, so uh, I'll give you an example, right? It, we work with low income people. Low income people are poor, right? They don't do smart things with their money, because they don't like they just they might have the most money out of anyone in their family. but they still don't have very much. And so they wind up lending money, or there's a funeral and they got to spend the money. So it's like, where's the money? You know, it's a non-payment case and you don't have any money. And I got to go in front of the judge and explain why you don't have any money. Help me out. So keeping your clients on task is very important. So you need to be able to develop a rapport with your client so that they can be honest with you. So that's the thing. It's like you have to be able to like say, like, why are you tell me what's going on? So that's one of the things. And the technique that I use, not so much in non-payments, because I kind of understand what's going on with non-payments. Like, you don't have the money. Like my mom did the same thing. Like she spent the money, whatever. But it's often in the holdovers. Like I had a drug case a few years ago where this is one of my first drug cases. So in New York, you can be evicted for dealing drugs in your apartment. So it's called a drug holdover. It's the closest we get to criminal law. And my client swore to me that she has never done drugs. And I believed her. And, you know, the allegations were that the drug dealer would come to the apartment every day and they would do a hand-to-hand exchange in the hallway. Those were the allegations. I went, I did a home visit. I didn't see any cameras. She had a big dog. I said, why do you come in the hallway? And she was like, well, it's because this is my friend and he's afraid of my big dog. And I saw the dog. The dog was very big. So I thought I believed her. Ready for trial. And I said to the opposing counsel, I said, do you have any video? And he said, yes, I do. So, and I said, well, can I see it before trial? And he said, yeah, because they have to turn it over. I go down to my office. I had an office at that time in the courthouse, and I take my client with me, and we take the hard drive and we plug it in. And they have video of her every single day buying drugs. Every day she's buying crack. And she looked like a librarian. You know, she didn't look, stereotype about what someone who smokes crack. This was not her. You know, she looked just like a nerd. You know, she had glasses, looked like a librarian. She was buying crack every day, every single day for months.
Oh my gosh.
So that was the last time I really ever believed a client. Wound up winning the case anyway, for essentially a technicality. The way in which a statute is written, you have to be selling drugs. She was just buying drugs. So we won. But then, so I learned this technique from the criminal folks. I said, so every time I have a client where I just kind of don't believe them, I go, don't tell me what you did. Just tell me why the landlord thinks you did this. That's what, so I learned that tricks. And then it's going to go, oh, well, they think I did this because, and then they can kind of develop a rapport. So truth telling is a big thing. So when you feel like clients are lying to you, you're either going to be able to break that down so they can trust you and say like, look, I'm like a priest or a rabbi. You can tell me anything. I'm not going to say anything. But I need to know the truth because you don't want me to go in there and blow myself up. Like, or the other analogy I say is like, this is a minefield. You know where the mines are and you need to tell me what to avoid. So I have these different techniques. So I try and break down the lack of trust, and then they can tell me the truth. If they're still not telling me the truth, that's when we have a problem. The other way is, the other red flag is their expectations are unrealistic. There are certain rules that just can't get around it. Like no lawyer in the world, Johnny Cochran could not get you out of this. But they expect that you will. And then you have to say like, look, no, we're going to settle this because there's nothing we can do. If your plan is to get up there and lie, I can't help you. So we have to find a way to come to a resolution. And if you're not into that, you need to let me go, or I need to make a motion to be relieved. Everyone's lying. So yeah, you assume your client's lying. But you have to have the empathy. See, that's the thing about public interest law is like, yeah, you assume that everyone's lying, all your clients are lying to you, but you can't let that stop you from doing your job. You still have to defend them. You still have to build that trust so that they will tell you the truth eventually. And it's hard. We have lots of cases like that where it's like, man, they got you, like illegal sublets, where you're subletting the apartment to someone else That's not allowed under the law because you're supposed to be living in your affordable apartment. You're not supposed
Mhm.
to be subletting it and
Yeah.
making money off of it and living
Yeah.
in New Jersey.
Yeah.
So, you know, it's not easy, but again, it's fun and it's really rewarding. You're in the trenches, you're in court with your client all the time. I love it.
Yeah, awesome. Well, I'm glad that you found your niche. So, can I assume that you haven't been tempted to go out and try to get a job at a law firm? You've had no
No, I've
interest?
never been tempted to do that.
Yeah, since
You
you
know,
hate
I
billable hours.
Yeah, no, man. Yeah, no, I've never been tempted to do that. I mean, there's probably other jobs there are other jobs I think I could do and would want to do, but it always would be on the public interest side or on the government side. You know, there's different state agencies and city agencies that are supposed to, monitor affordable housing and develop affordable housing. Um, I can see myself doing that, but I can't see myself ever working for a private law firm.
Yeah, I see. So, Tony wants to know, have you had any mentors and anything that impacted your ascent in your field?
I've had a lot. That's why I wanted to work, doing the job that I do. Because when I was at the law firm, I was only there for a short time. There were some genius lawyers there. I mean, brilliant lawyers. I mean, when you go to law school, you learn about the Mount Laurel doctrine. I worked with the architects of the Mount Laurel doctrine, right, which is affordable housing and zoning. I worked with the people that invented Mount Laurel, literally.
Cool.
Yeah, and so I was working with them. They were amazing lawyers, but they were very bad teachers.
Mhm.
They couldn't teach, right? So what I found at legal services was amazing attorneys. I don't know if I'm supposed to name names, but you know, if that's okay, I mean, one of the best lawyers in the city of New York is Ed Josephson. I got to work with him, really renowned tenants attorney, Matt Shasher. I mean, there's just so many, names that I can mention that were amazing mentors. But what was great about them was that they would not only are they brilliant, but they would take the time to sit with you and explain why you're doing what you're doing. Not just go do this, right? It was why you're doing what you're doing, right? What was the strategy behind it? So, in terms of writing and my writing improved dramatically. I was always a pretty good writer, but my writing improved a lot because they would edit it. They would go line by line and say, why are you saying this? Why are you saying that? Why is this? Your organization is poor. You have these two concepts that you're smushing together. They need to be separate. Moot court, where you get up in front of your colleagues and you argue a case. Like if you're arguing an appeal, they will sit in a panel of 7 top attorneys and grill you. So by the time you get to court, it's easy. So
Mhm. Okay.
So
Awesome.
lots of mentors, and I think I'm a good mentor too. Like, I since I was given so much, I feel like I need to give to my people, and explain to them why I'm doing what I'm doing. What choices I'm making, and the reasoning behind it, not just file a motion to dismiss based on failure to plead necessary facts. It's like, okay, what did you learn from that, right? No, it's like you read the petition, here's what's missing, here's what they should have said, this is where their case is weak, this is the type of motion I want you to file. So you spend time with people.
Mhm. Okay. Yeah. So Serena is asking, yeah, we gotta, unfortunately, we don't have time to address every single question or comment because it's already almost an hour here. So Serena wants to know, how did you land a role with this amazing organization, and how frequently do you go to court? What's your work-life balance like?
Yeah. I mean, blind luck, honestly. Like I came to New York City. I did not have a plan. I didn't have a job. And I just wound up talking my way into interviews with people. I just showed up and said, hey, look, I can do this. And, um, you know, let me work here. And it just worked out. I mean,
Well,
um,
what do you mean? Like, did you already know somebody or alumni from your
to no
law
single
school?
person.
What did you
No,
do? Like, call or walk in or
just walk
what?
in. I didn't cold call. I just walked in and said, hey, who's here? I want to talk to them. And I wound up doing things I couldn't do now. So there's like the head of legal aid. Her name is Adrienne Holder. She's the head of legal aid. And there's another fantastic attorney there. Um, And I just kind of blustered my way in and just said, this is on 180 Water Street. So this is like a fancy building. I said, hey, I'm here. I'd like to just take 10 minutes of your time to talk. And they did it. I couldn't do it now because I know who she is. So I was like, I would be so petrified to do it, and then they got me an interview. I wound up not working at Legal Aid, but then I went to Brooklyn and wound up working at Brooklyn Legal Services. And again, I just walked in. I just said, hey, is there anyone here who's the project director? I want to talk to him. And it was a guy named Chip Gray. And he said, yeah, we have a position. Why not? So I don't know. It was something maybe about my naivete. Like I didn't know what I couldn't do. So I wound up doing that. But no, but you don't have to do that anymore. Like we are constantly hiring. We are a huge organization now with like probably 400 attorneys. So we're always hiring. You don't have to you just intern. I think that the best way to get a job at legal services or legal aid or Northern Manhattan or any of the great organizations, Bronx Defenders, is interns. When you're in law school, if this is what you want to do, intern with them. You will work for free, but you will learn a lot and you'll make a lot of connections. I'm in court all the time. I'm in court, I would say 3 days a week, sometimes 4 days a week, usually not 5 days a week. Usually Fridays you're not in court, but sometimes you are. So you are in court every single week, at least twice. There's never a week that goes by where there's not at least 2 cases where you're in court, and sometimes a lot more than that. So you're in court a lot, and court's tiring, but mostly it's in the morning. You get out at 1 and you can go back to your office and do your work. Work-life balance is hard. I mean, that's what, that is really difficult. I mean, we do work very long hours. You're dealing with people that are in crisis. It can be very stressful. It is hard, and we have programs that help with that. And we have like meditation and, certainly we have a lot of vacation time. You get good vacation benefits. Sometimes people don't take them. It's the work-life balance is tough. I mean, it's as hard as corporate. It can be as hard as corporate law. It can be as hard as one of these big law firms. Just the amount of hours that you're putting in, it just tends to be a lot. It's not as much, it's not 70 hours, 80 hours a week. It's not that, but at times it can be that. And especially because in those big firms, you're kind of a minion, right? You're not really, in our business, you're the boss. You'll be doing this trial. So it's you're going out there. I mean, obviously you have support, you have a second seat, you have, other people helping you, but primarily it's your case, you make the decisions. So it's stressful for that reason. And that can be difficult with work-life balance.
Mm-hmm. Well, are there days when you can just say, well, it's 5 or 5:30, so I'm leaving now? I mean, does it ever work like that where you can just flat out leave?
It depends. I mean, it's hard to say now because we're mostly remote. But there's people that work 9 to 5. I mean, they must be very efficient at what they do, but mostly that is not the case. Mostly people are there at 6, 7 o'clock at night. I mean, I've seen people there at 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, that's tough. Yeah. So she wants to know, do your clients pay for services
Nothing.
at all?
Zero. They don't pay anything. They're not allowed to pay, and we're not allowed to receive any compensation from our clients. Like I said, sometimes I'll bake you a cake or they'll buy flowers. Something under $50, you can accept the gift. But no, we do not accept money. Cannot accept money.
Mm-hmm. So
we take all kinds in terms of clients.
Yeah, all types of clients. You don't have any income requirement or?
There is an income requirement. Yeah, you have to make less than 200% of poverty. But during the pandemic, that was relaxed. So we wind up people were actually pretty wealthy getting our services. They didn't have any money at the time, right? Like they, lost their big time job on whatever, as an ad executive, or a top chef or something. But yeah, so I think we're back to 200% of poverty.
I see. Thank you. Okay. Jonathan Noble is here. He also has a great YouTube channel. He's a family lawyer in Pennsylvania. He says, what's next for you career-wise? Where did you grow up? He said he grew up in Manhattan.
Yeah,
so he's a native native New Yorker?
Yeah, only been out of New York just to go to law school, or to law school in New Jersey, and then I lived briefly in California and in Mexico for a short, about a year. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm born and bred city college boy, New York to the bone. Yeah, I don't know what's next. I don't know. I actually am looking for other jobs within the agency, because I'm not very good at administration. And in order to advance, like I'm at the level where the next step is like you're now like the director, or director of a unit, which means you have to deal with all the contracts, you have to deal with like the reporting. I'm terrible at that, so I want to be in court constantly, and do litigation. So I don't know where my career is, but so I am a little bit in a weird space in terms of what I do next. So, but hopefully I, will continue to, be in court and do litigation, and not too much admin, because I'm not good at that.
Okay, cool. Yeah, somebody else asked, do you need a car in New York City? I guess you would say no because
A
you don't have
car?
a car.
No, a car is a burden.
Mhm.
I rent zip cars when I do need a car, but no, I don't have a car. And I had a car once when I lived in Brooklyn, but I don't have a car, and I don't think I would want a car.
Mhm. Well, what about, I mean, this is kind of a dumb question, but what about grocery shopping? Like, is there some like small grocery store nearby where you can just easily
Yeah,
get
it's like a
what
sea
you
town. You go to like the local, place, and yeah, just walk. It's walking distance. Yeah, and there's always a supermarket nearby. And there's probably 3 supermarkets within walking distance of my house, and I live in Washington Heights now.
need?
So yeah, yeah, just walk.
Oh, okay. Just wondering about that. And then, last question though, what if somebody wants to get a job with you or some other public interest place? What are you looking for in attorneys when you're interviewing them?
Commitment. That's the thing we're looking at the most. Are you committed to the work? Do you want to do this? Like, do you understand what drives poverty? Do you have like the kind of ideology that we're looking for? Have you thought about it? Like, we ask questions like, why do you think there's poverty? And we don't expect that you would answer that question, because you wouldn't know. Like, how would you know? No one knows the answer, but have you thought about it? So, that's what we're looking for commitment, to the work. Of course, you have to have skills, like where you got to be smart, and you have to be articulate because you're a litigator, you're in court a lot. You have to be a good writer, but all that stuff we can work with. I mean, we hire writing tutors, we hire people, seriously, that will help you become a better writer, that will help you become a better public speaker. We even hire people that help you with organization. Like, I'm terrible at organization. They hired a consultant to work with me so I could become a better be better organized, like my calendar and time management. We'll work with anything that we can do, but you have to want to do it, and you have to be committed to it, and you have to understand the dynamics. You have to have like the cultural competence, to deal with people that are from different backgrounds, that are from that don't speak English, that have been abused, that have been suffered domestic violence, that have drug problems, all those things. If you are still committed to working with the community, and you're deeply involved, we could turn you into a great lawyer. We can turn you into a great writer, but we can't teach commitment. So what we're looking for is commitment. That's the number one thing.
Yeah. Okay. Great. Awesome. Well, it's so nice to hear from you. I'm so glad that you. I don't know. How did you even find my channel? Did it just show up as
Yeah, I
a
think it just
suggestion?
popped up. Yeah, I think it just popped up.
Yeah, that's so random. But I mean, this has been so enlightening because I never really knew much about what it's like to work in New York City for a public interest organization. Like, I just always assumed that it's really hard to get those jobs in New York City, and I thought that
Mhm.
they really paid lousy, and that you'd have to like live with 10 people to afford to live there. So
Yeah.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
I'm
but
glad. I'm glad. Listen, thank you for the time. I hope your listeners and viewers, consider it as a career option. It's been great for me. I'm very lucky. So, yeah, check it out.
Cool. Yeah. So Serena, if you're still out there, because she is thinking about applying to law school. So,
Yeah.
and then Tuan also is planning on,
Yeah. I
eventually
think
taking the
yeah, I mean, if
LSAT.
you just put my name in LinkedIn, I should pop up. So yeah, add me on LinkedIn or message me on LinkedIn. I think Serena did do that. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
happy to
Cool.
answer any questions.
That's so nice of you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so now you guys know a real live attorney who is actually working there and a supervisor with the legal services. So
Mhm.
if you guys end up graduating from law school and want to work in New York City, then maybe Shantanu will be in charge and will give you a job. So
That's that.
maybe,
Yeah,
no promises.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Or we'll at
Yeah.
least get you an internship where we won't pay you.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, he doesn't have a YouTube channel, but he was talking about LinkedIn.
Yeah,
So
LinkedIn,
on that
LinkedIn.
website, you
Yeah,
can
just put
find
my name
him.
in LinkedIn. I know there might be another Shantanu Basu, but probably not that many of them.
Yeah. Okay. Thank
There is
you.
one actually, Shantanu Basu, who's a New York lawyer, but he spells his name a little differently.
What? You mean there's another person with your same name?
Yep,
No
he's a
way.
patent he's a patent lawyer. If you Google Shantanu Basu, sometimes he comes up, but he spells it Shantanu Basu.
Oh,
So yeah, I was like, I want to meet the guy, but he lives in California. Although he's licensed in New York, he's licensed in New York and California. I
okay.
was like, you're another New York lawyer with the name Shantanu Basu? But yeah, he's a he was like a chemical engineer of some sort, and then he went to law school, and then he's a patent lawyer. He does patent.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah, so that would be funny if you accidentally got emails or people calling you thinking that you're the other guy.
So far, they haven't confused us.
Yeah, yeah. Well, the funny thing is when I was at Georgetown Law School, there was another person with the same exact name as me, and her middle initial was also a Y, who was
Hmm.
also a student at Georgetown, but I was at the law school.
Yeah.
And I think, well, there is another Judy Singh who is an attorney in California. So,
Hmm.
but anyway, yeah,
Yeah.
sometimes it's just so random how there might be another person with your name.
I
So,
know. So I have a very unusual name, but yeah, there's another one out there who's
yeah.
also a lawyer. So okay,
Okay, cool.
small
Yeah, well,
world.
thanks everybody for being out there, and we'll see when I have time to do another live stream. I might do one on Sunday evening if I have time to do some research, talking more about the Dan Markel case, but focusing on Wendy Adelson. So back to the true crime type stuff, because it's kind of amazing how many people really want to watch those other kinds of videos that I've done as opposed
Hmm.
to, here's an interview with somebody about their career, but I think both are useful. It's different types of people that are interested in it. So,
Definitely,
yeah,
definitely.
thank you for your time. And so, if you can hang on for a minute so I can
Sure.
say goodbye to you personally, and we'll say
Okay.
goodbye to everybody else out there. Yeah.
I will.
Thanks, Jonathan and Tuan and Tony and everybody else out there. See you guys next time.